Hi everyone, this is Emmy, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet some mittens. Now this video assumes you already know how to crochet. If not, go and watch my video, learn how to crochet. We're going to start the mittens by making the ribbing first, the ribbing that's going to fit on your wrist. So I'm going to chain 10, 2. Now that's the length of the ribbing that's going to be on the cuff. If you would just want a short ribbing, just chain 5 or 6. So I'm going to single crochet in every stitch across the chain. We never work in the first stitch, we always go directly into the second stitch and single crochet. We're going to single crochet in every stitch across the row. Check my video on learning how to do the rib stitch. There's a link below in the text below this video. I'm going to single crochet in every stitch across the row. And the last stitch. At the end of the row we chain 1 and we turn. Now if we were just doing regular single crochet stitching, we would single crochet in this space underneath the stitch and we'd have 2 loops of the stitch on the hook. But we're going to do the ribbing stitch in the row. We're going to single crochet in each stitch, working in the back side of the stitch only, all the way across the row. Single crochet in the back side of the stitch. One more stitch, and we've worked across the row and we've got our first row of ribbing stitch. And the ribbing stitch will have hills and valleys. Chain 1 and turn the work. We're going to work in the back side of the stitch only. We're going to skip the first stitch, work a single crochet in the second stitch and in each stitch across the row. Chain 1 and turn. Single crochet in the back side of the stitch in each stitch across the row. Now I'm going to do this off camera because I'm just going to make a strip now that is going to be long enough to pass over my hand. Okay, I've gone ahead and worked a rectangle, the ribbing stitch. You should have to stretch it a bit to be able to fit. It just has to pass over your hand, but of course you want the ribbing to be snug after it gets past your hands. If you stretch it and it reaches, then that's good enough. Bring the 2 sides together. So now we're going to slip stitch all the way across to join these 2 ribbings into a tube. So to slip stitch the hook through both sides of the work, and then you just bring a stitch through. You could do this with a darning needle, but if you learn the slip stitch, it's much neater looking and it has a more professional seam. So it's really like sewing, only it's neater. So you just kind of match the stitches, pull the stitch through to both sides. Last stitch, and we'll have joined this into a tube. So now we can fasten off and pull that stitch through. So as long as I can pull it up over my hand, then that's going to be fine. So now I'm going to start with another color just so it's easier for you to see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to attach the yarn in the same stitch where we ended. I'm going to pull the yarn through in any stitch in the vicinity of where we slip stitched to join. So to attach a new color, you simply pull the yarn through and leave a tail long enough so that you can weave it through when you're finished your work, and you're going to chain 1. And then you're going to single crochet in every stitch across the row. And it's not as easy to see these stitches because they're at the end of a row. If you want to count how many rows of ribbing you did, then you'll have 1 stitch for each row of ribbing. But I'm just going to evenly single crochet in every stitch across this opening. It's not important how many stitches you have in this row. The important thing is that it doesn't pull tightly or it doesn't gap out. So just evenly single crochet 1 stitch in every row across. And I'm almost done the row, and then I'm going to stop and show you that. Okay, last stitch, and slip stitch to join. Okay, we attached our yarn here, and we chained one, and then we single crocheted evenly across the row. And you can see we're starting the body of the mitten. But you can see that my hand gets bigger after my wrist, so we're evenly going to add 4 stitches across this next row that we make. So I'm just going to count how many stitches, and I'm going to divide it by 4. I don't usually do that. I usually just eyeball it. I'll do 2 stitches in this stitch, 2 in this one, 2 in this one, 2 in this one. But if you want to be even about it, then we're just going to count the stitches: 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. We have 20 stitches across. So that means that every 5th stitch we're going to do 2 single crochets. So we were at the end of our row, and we're going to chain 1, and we're going to turn. Okay, so we're going to single crochet in the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're going to make 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And it's not crucial that it's 4 stitches, you just have to increase 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 single crochets in the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 single crochet in the next stitch. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 single crochet in the next stitch, and slip stitch to join. Now we've increased for the body of the mitten, so now it's just plain straight forward. Chain 1 and turn, single crochet in every stitch around. And we're at the end of the row. We're going to slip stitch to join, chain 1 and turn. So now I'm just going to go off camera, and I'm going to continue this same pattern of single crochet in every stitch across the row, slip stitch to join, chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to keep doing that until I've reached this section here where I have to leave an opening for my thumb. Okay, I've crocheted enough rows that I'm where I have to start leaving an opening for the thumb. So I'm going to place the mitten on my hand. I'm going to place the slip stitch to join section right here under the thumb, and that means I'm going to have to crochet a chain to reach across from one side to the other, and I'm going to have to skip as many stitches as I require for my thumb. So I'm just going to count. This is the stitch I'm in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to chain 4, and then now you can judge about how many chains you need, but I think I need chain 4, and then I'm going to single crochet here, and then I'm going to continue working the hand of the mitten. So I'm going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to skip 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to work into the next stitch, and I'm going to make a single crochet in that next stitch. And I'm going to check to make sure that my chain didn't twist. So okay, now I'm just going to single crochet in every stitch around until I get back to that chain that I made for the thumb. Single crochet in each stitch around, and I'm approaching the chain. Okay, I've gone all the way around, and now here's my chain. So now I'm going to single crochet in each stitch of the chain. So 1, we had 4 chains, we're going to have 4 stitches across, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to resume single crochet in every stitch across the row. Just plain single crochet in every stitch around. Now, a lot of people will work in a spiral. I don't like working in a spiral because your finished work will have a twist to it that you'll never be able to get rid of. So when I get back over here to the chain, I'm going to slip stitch to join, and I'm going to chain one and turn, same as I've been doing all along. Our mitten is beginning to form the body of the mitten now. Chain one, and I'm going to turn the work. And you can see where your stitches that you have to slip stitch in, because as you're approaching it, there's a bit of a bump in your row. So I'm going to reach way over here and slip stitch to join. And that's one of the common mistakes that beginners make, is they slip stitch to join too soon. Like you might be inclined to slip stitch to join here, and that would be the wrong place. And it's easy to see where your first place to slip stitch is, because that's the first place at the beginning of your row that has the two loops that are easily accessed with your hook. So I've slip stitched to join, and as you can see, our mitten is beginning to take shape. So now all I'm going to do is do the same thing over and over until I get to the end of the mitten. So I'm going to do that off camera. So I'm just going to chain one and turn, single crochet across the row, slip stitch to join, chain one and turn, go back across the row, single crochets across the row, slip stitch to join. I'm now to start decreasing for the end of the mitten. So you see, you can just barely see the tips of my fingers. So now we're just going to do several rows of decreasing stitches. So I'll show you how to do that. We're going to put our hook back in, and here's where we slip stitch to join. So we're going to chain one and turn, and now we're going to start working in every second stitch until the front of the mitten is closed up. So we're going to skip this stitch, and we're going to single crochet in that stitch. Skip the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch. Continue that way around. And you'll see that the opening in the mitten will get smaller and smaller. Skip the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch. Skip the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch. Skip the next stitch, single crochet. Skip the next stitch, single crochet. Skip the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch. And see, the opening is getting smaller. Skip the next stitch, single crochet in the next. Skip the next, single crochet in the next. Skip the next, single crochet in the next. And I think I can only do one more stitch right here, and then we can fasten off. You're going to thread the yarn end into a yarn needle, and you're going to weave back and forth across the front of the mitten for at least 3 or 4 times. And then you can just snip off that yarn end. So there's the finished mitten. Now we're going to work on the thumb. We should have 10 stitches around. If you insert the hook in this stitch, it's already a little bit stretched because it has a stitch in it. So it will leave a hole in your mitten. So just go right down below that and attach your yarn into the base of a stitch, so you won't wind up with a hole in the side of your mitten, which you have to close up with your yarn end. Okay, so that was attached our stitch, and we chained one. So that counts as one stitch. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you just pull that chain out a bit, and you'll be able to see the side of the stitch. 8, 9, and 10, and then slip stitch to join. Now we've established the opening of our thumb, and we're going to just work back and forth until we have it long enough for the thumb. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to single crochet in each stitch around. And slip stitch to join. So here's where we attached our yarn. So I'm just going to work around about 5 or 6 more rows of simply single crochet in each stitch around, slip stitch to join, chain 1 and turn. Worked enough rows for the thumb to be long enough. So now I'm just going to close up the end of the thumb and we'll be finished our mitten. Insert the hook back into the stitch. So we're ready to start decreasing for the end of the thumb. And I'm going to show you an alternative method to just skipping this stitch, but I'm hoping I'm not going to confuse you. If you don't understand this, you can just go back to the method that we used for the end of the mitten. So some people like to just slip stitch into that stitch that they're going to skip into the next stitch and single crochet. You still skip the stitch, it's just that it fills in that little gap. So you slip stitch into that stitch and then you just single crochet as usual into the next stitch. Slip stitch into that stitch, single crochet as usual into the next stitch. But there will be one extra loop on your hook from that slip stitch. So slip stitch and then single crochet. And one more, slip stitch and single crochet. And then we can fasten off. Pull that stitch through, thread your yarn into a yarn needle. I recommend you buy a yarn needle with the largest hole you can find because you'll save a lot of time with your threading and unthreading. So now you can just finish this off by weaving the yarn into the end of the work. And then you can pull that through and cut off that yarn end. Weave in these yarn ends and your mitten is finished.